The warm breeze carried the scent of salt and sunscreen as the waves crashed gently against the shore. The golden sand stretched endlessly under the setting sun, casting long shadows over the wooden beach chairs where we sat, sipping on our cold drinks. It was supposed to be a perfect vacation, a well-deserved escape from the mundane routine of life. My wife, Emily, and my best friend, Jake, had been laughing together over some inside joke, and I had smiled, blissfully unaware of the storm that was about to shatter my world. Emily and I had been married for 7 years. We had built a life together filled with laughter, struggles, and dreams. Jake had been my friend for even longer, since our college days, where we bonded over our shared love for adventure, late-night conversations, and the simple joy of just being there for each other. When the idea of this trip first came up, it had seemed perfect. A few days on a remote beach, away from work emails, city noise, and all the distractions that kept us from just being present with one another. But something had changed. It started with small things, the way Emily and Jake seemed to share glances that I couldn't quite decipher, the way their conversations would drop to hushed tones when I walked into the room. At first, I brushed it off as paranoia. After all, Emily loved me, and Jake, he was like a brother. The thought of anything beyond friendship between them was unthinkable. Yet the signs became harder to ignore. Emily, who once reached for my hand absent-mindedly, now seemed distant. Jake, who had always been the first to drag me into spontaneous adventures, now found reasons to stay behind when I suggested exploring the island. It was a slow, creeping dread, a whisper at the back of my mind that refused to be silenced. It wasn't until that fateful night on the beach that the truth finally unveiled itself. I had woken up in the middle of the night, the oppressive heat of the tropics making sleep impossible. Slipping out of bed, I decided to take a walk along the shore, letting the cool night air wash over me. That was when I saw them. At first, I didn't understand. The flickering firelight illuminated two figures, close, too close. Emily's soft laughter, the kind that used to be reserved just for me, filled the silence. Jake's hand brushed against her arm, his fingers lingering longer than they should have. And then, as if the universe itself wanted me to see it, she turned to him, and they kissed. Time stopped. The waves, the wind, the distant music from the beach bar, it all became a dull hum against the roaring pain in my chest. Tears welled up in my eyes, blurring the betrayal before me, but I couldn't look away. My breath hitched, my throat tightened, and before I could stop them, hot tears spilled down my cheeks. I wanted to scream, to demand an explanation, but the only sound that escaped me was a strangled sob, lost in the night air. What do you do when the two people you love the most betray you? How do you move forward when the foundation of your life crumbles beneath you? This is my story. The shock numbed me at first. I stood there, my breath shallow, my mind refusing to accept the reality before me. My wife, my best friend, together in a way they had no right to be. My fists clenched at my sides, nails digging into my palms. I wanted to charge at them, to yell, to demand an explanation, but my body betrayed me just as they had. I took a step back, then another. The sand gave way under my feet as I turned and walked away, my chest heaving with the effort to keep myself from breaking apart. Tears streamed down my face, hot and unchecked, soaking into the collar of my shirt. The crashing waves drowned out the sound of my footsteps, but not the chaos in my head. The memories of Emily and me, our wedding day, the nights we stayed up talking, the promises whispered in the dark flashed like cruel reminders of everything I was about to lose. I made it back to our rental house, barely aware of how I got there. My hands trembled as I poured myself a drink, the burn of the alcohol doing little to numb the ache in my chest. My vision blurred again as fresh tears gathered in my eyes, the weight of my grief pressing down on me until my shoulders shook with silent sobs. How long had this been going on? Was I blind? Or had I simply refused to see the truth? Minutes felt like hours before I heard the door creak open. I turned, and there she was, Emily, her face flushed, her hair slightly disheveled. My stomach churned at the sight. She froze when she saw me, her eyes widening with something that could have been guilt, or maybe just fear of being caught. "You're awake," she said softly, as if nothing had happened. A bitter laugh escaped my lips, mixed with the broken sound of another sob. "Yeah, Couldn't sleep. She hesitated, then took a step closer. I saw it then. At the moment she realized I knew, the color drained from her face, and she looked away. Listen, yeah, don't. I cut her off, my voice raw, thick with emotion. Just don't. The silence between us stretched, heavy and suffocating. My heart pounded as I watched her struggle for words, watched her wrestle with the weight of what she had done. My breath came in uneven gasps, my tears refusing to stop. But what could she possibly say? That it was a mistake, that she didn't mean for it to happen? And Jake, I couldn't even think about him without rage boiling in my veins. How long? My voice was quiet, but the question held the force of a storm. Emily flinched. I don't know. It wasn't planned, it just happened. I let out a slow breath, running a hand through my hair. That was worse than if she had admitted it had been going on for months. Because if it just happened, then what did that mean for us, for everything we had built? She reached for me then, but I stepped back. Don't, I repeated, my voice shaking now, a fresh tear slipping down my cheek. I can't. I need to think. And with that, I grabbed my keys and walked out the door, leaving behind the woman I thought I knew and the life I thought was mine. I drove aimlessly, the dark road stretching before me like an uncertain future. The sound of the ocean faded behind me, replaced by the rhythmic hum of tires against pavement. My mind was a battlefield of conflicting emotions: rage, heartbreak, confusion. I wanted answers, but more than that, I wanted to wake up from this nightmare. Before I knew it, I had stopped outside a bar on the edge of town. The neon lights flickered, casting a ghostly glow on the empty parking lot. I needed an escape, even if it was just for a few hours. Pushing open the door, I stepped inside, letting the dim atmosphere swallow me whole. I ordered a drink, then another. The alcohol dulled the edges of my pain, but it didn't erase it. I stared into my glass, trying to make sense of what had happened. My eyes burned with unshed tears, my chest still tight with sorrow. Was there something I had missed? Had I driven Emily away without realizing it? Lost in thought, I didn't notice the woman sitting next to me until she spoke. Rough night? I looked up. She had kind eyes, the kind that held their own stories of pain. You could say that. She nodded knowingly, taking a sip of her drink. Sometimes, the people we trust the most are the ones who hurt us the worst. Her words hit harder than I expected. Maybe I wasn't alone in this after all.